Welcome to Blue Monday from the Blue Room. Rodger is back this week after a very sporting end to last week, and Dave is back after having a tooth pulled out last night. Dave, what's more painful, watching Everton or getting your wisdom tooth pulled?
This season up until Christmas was much worse, wasn't it? I mean, yeah, I think getting a tooth pulled out. Like I haven't had a tooth pulled out since I was, I don't know, a kid. When you get your adult teeth and all that, when your tooth fairy's on its way around and gives you a fiver.
Five?
I haven't had a tooth. I know. At the time, I was thinking, that's what 20 odd years ago. I'm thinking, do you know what? I think my dad had a few quid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible experience. Like toothache's one of the worst things you can obviously worst things in the context, but I mean just in general pain, just that dull pain repeatedly. And I was in the house last night, and I was like, I just can't take this. So I'll give them a bit of a pull here. I went to this 24/7 dentist place in Egbert. They were lovely people, quite lovely because they charged me 600 quid to just pull a tooth out, but needs must at times. So I got
sponsors for the show then.
There you go. Yeah, I might ask them actually because it was funny because the guy who did it, obviously with it being 24/7, what they do is they work until like 10 at night, and then they'll leave and they'll be on call kind of thing. So they don't live too far away. So if someone rings up and needs something doing, they'll be able to go back to the building. And we come out. The car was parked just in front of it on the main road, and there's this absolutely stunning BMW parked next to us, and I was like, that's definitely the dentist's car. If he's charging 600 quid for 5 minutes, just go like that out your mouth, then he's got a few quid, that fella.
And Rog, you're just back from the darts and Cheltenham. How was that last week?
That's great. The darts was the week before in Brighton. Mental. 2 180s. 2 9-darters. The first one of which I didn't realise was about to happen, which explains why I got drenched in beer from above. Which I thought at £8 a pint was a little bit wasteful. But
maybe they're all 24-hour dentists.
Rodger, is that just like the theme of this? Is me and you just getting ripped off?
Quite possibly. I mean, the darts is extraordinary. If you get the chance to go, you have to go. It's just, we were sat with a bunch of traffic cones who were having an ongoing row with the Oompa Loompas behind. I mean, it's just mad. It's Christmas. It's panto season. But what it is an awful lot of drunk people with no aggro, which makes it really quite refreshing, because everyone's just being stupid. And the darts was brilliant. And Cheltenham was great. Could have done with a few more winners, but the had to wait until the last race for my nap. Wad Who, as people will have known if they listened to last week's show, came in at 4-1, I think, in the Martin Pipe. Great, so many upsets. Christ, odds-on favourites getting beat, but yeah, you can't beat Cheltenham. It's the best week of the year, and I feel like I've been away for I don't know, a month or so, but it's only one episode missed. So happy to crack on and chat Everton.
And once again, just like last week, we are picking up on the back of a draw. Funny game this, I thought. It was never going to be as easy as maybe we were expecting, because West Ham aren't in a great run of form, to be honest. But they have got a good record at Goodison lately. So it was always going to be quite tricky. Thomas Souček always seems to score against us. I think that's 5 goals he scored against us now. Usually nets a winner. So the fact that we pulled it round at the end, I think it's sort of testament to this sort of David Moyes side and what he's got going. It's that you don't ever feel out the game. So whereas like when we went 1-0 down earlier in the season, we'd be like, that's it, we're done, we're toasted. We're just not going to get back into it. This team, I think that's a hallmark of just like David Moyes' teams, Dave. They just keep going, and everyone or most people seem to stay till the end now. I don't know if it's because we leave in Goodison and we don't want to go, but we certainly stay till the end now, even when we're 1-0 down. Whereas, in past seasons, we might have just got off because you knew we weren't getting back into it.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think when you remember Moyes at his peak, particularly in the early years, the one that sticks in my mind about staying late was when we beat Southampton 2-1 when...
Yes, I remember that game. When your man was holding it up in the corner flag, wasting time, whoever it was, and we went up the other end and got the winner.
That's right, yeah. Rooney scored. Rooney hit an amazing cross, didn't he? That game, and the last one, Radzinski he pretty much sliced it into the top corner, didn't he? We went and won it, like scored twice in 5 minutes. Yeah, it has that feeling about it at Goodison, I think, where, not to be cliche about it, but something like that tends to always happen at Goodison, or it tended to always happen under Moyes. And regardless of how poor we played, Everton always seemed like they were able to dig something out when they've been at the worst. And obviously these days, that's a trait that we've needed, haven't we? Well, from the other managers we've had to stay in the league. That one against West Ham the other day was. I didn't expect it to happen because that was a really flat match for me. And I think we hinted upon this last week, talking about how now you're safe. You don't want to get into that stage where it's just meandering through until perhaps Southampton, but all the way up till then, the half dozen games that we had till then is going to be pretty boring. It's just going to be more about Goodison, about singing songs at Goodison, about pictures, about all the brilliance. Memorabilia basically that Goodison has become, which is lovely. It's brilliant, and the match itself almost I think is the second most important thing for many fans when they go to Goodison. That's not to do them a disservice, but Goodison is crucial to all of us, isn't it? Many people in different ways, and I felt in that match that we lost ideas. It felt that we couldn't find any sort of rhythm. It was Alcaraz's first start at Goodison, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think just on him, I thought it was a bit mad to take Jack Harrison off the left and put him back on the right where he's less effective, and then put Alcaraz on the left where he's less effective. He's better down the middle. It just felt like he'd moved too many bits around there to accommodate having Decore down the middle and playing Alcaraz as well. It just, I don't know, that tweak felt a little bit too much to me.
Well, do you know what? You've hit the nail on the head there, because we were talking, I think it was on post-match about this, about having so much versatile players in the final third. You know, I was saying all of a sudden, it's like you woke up and realised, hang on, we've got half a dozen really good attacking players there that we can mix around, put them in different positions, and lo and behold, the first time he does it, it doesn't have that much of an effect.
Yeah.
But he's a bundle of joy, isn't he, Alcaraz? I mean, he's that type of player who, there's always something going to happen one way or the other when he's on the pitch. Similar to Ndiaye as well. I mean, when he gets back, you know, it's mouth-watering to see what we're able to do there with those two playing together. Well, I don't think it'll happen before the end of the season, will it? I'm
not sure. I don't know the timescale on Ndiaye, but I mean, Rodger, Alcaraz could have won it at the end as well. He got put through, unlucky not to win it. I thought it would have been a bit of an unfair result if we'd won. But like I said to Dave, you do get that from a David Moyes team, don't you? You do get that going right till the end. And so long as you're not like, the game's not adrift, like 2-3 goals, you're always in it if there's one goal in it.
Absolutely. I think listening to you talk about, you know, that was how many games have we got left now? 5 or 4?
4 at Goodison.
4 left at Goodison, right? Yeah. And so that's the 5th last game at Goodison, and obviously a bit like the test event, right? The match was less relevant than people sitting around, and because a lot of people, I know a few people for whom that was their last ever visit, and it must be quite difficult for the players because you know, to retain focus and concentration when the fans aren't necessarily paying attention that closely as you would if there was some jeopardy. Okay, it's already a dead rubber, and every game we've got at home is a dead rubber. You know, a few more places up the league, and it's £3 million a place. That's all well and good, but it's going to be a very, very strange next 4 matches in terms of atmosphere and motivation for those players. Although a number of them should be playing for contracts, or loan players who should be playing to get signed permanently. Alcaraz is finding his feet, isn't he? He's got all the talent in the world, lots of attitude, could become a hero, could become a villain, what price he gets sent off in the derby. But yeah, we've got some attacking options, which is good to see. And I'm glad we kept going, obviously. I don't think West Ham deserved the win. I'm not sure we did. But O'Brien, man of the match, clearly. Lovely flicked header. I mean, extraordinary skill to do that. Didn't just hit him, he directs it. I thought he was head and shoulders well. I mean, Jordan Pickford again saved us. Probably could have been 2 or 3-0 down without him and his acrobatics and quick reactions. But these games are funny, and it made me think a little bit about next season. In that, will we as fans, take kind of boring kind of games, a draw here, a loss there, and a season which just ends in mid-table mediocrity, because we haven't had one of them for a very, very long time. Not necessarily being able to compete at the top end for Europe. We might be able to, depending on what we can do in the summer. But no relegation jeopardy, and just 11th, 12th, or 13th that we'll be going for. I wonder how long the fans will kind of be okay with that, because the stadium's going to be a distraction, isn't it? Everybody's going to be enjoying that and the wonderful new surroundings. It's going to be palatial, and we might lose the first 3 games, God forbid, and no one will really be asked because we're in our glorious new stadium. So I just wondered what your thoughts were on, if we just have a kind of boring-ish season where we win 8-9 at home, a few draws, lose half a dozen, get 46 points. It's kind of meh, but we'd take them there, wouldn't we, compared to the chaos of the last few years?
I think so, yeah. I think that at the start of the West Ham game, so the 1878 put on a big display again, which apparently looked amazing. I was in the park end with the flag.
Yeah, you didn't have a great view
with one
from the
this
park
time.
End, no.
But yes, the atmosphere was geared up for it, and you're thinking we're going into these last 4 games, but it did fall a bit flat straight away, really. And like you say, it's I think we're going to get 13th, the best. I think that's probably the highest we can aim for. Which obviously, given when Sean Dyche left, it'd be like, yeah, okay, we'll take that. But yeah, next season could be the same. It could be, and most likely will be. And I think we need to just set our expectations on that, don't we? Just have a quiet season, really, no drama. Just settle into the new home, because that's another thing that's going to come into it next season. We won't have a home advantage for at least a season, because it will be new to everyone. And when teams say they hate coming to Goodison Park, teams won't hate going to the new ground. They'll probably quite like it, because it's a nice big stadium. There's no home advantage. We won't sort of get into our rhythm as fans straight away. The team will be getting used to new surroundings. So, I think this is why you see a lot of clubs do have a little dip when they move to a new ground, because it is unfamiliar. And do you think that'll hinder us, Dave? No home advantage? Do you think Goodison's been that much of a home advantage for us lately?
Yeah, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I like, and I've preferred for a long time, Everton away from home. The way in which you play, it seems to have suited the squad that we've had, that had a lot of limitations to be able to be a productive unit at Goodison. I think there's been real issues at Goodison for many players in recent seasons, and getting Moyes back actually brings that back in terms of what we said there about going and rescuing a point, saying something always happens towards the end of a match at Goodison if Everton aren't winning a game. I feel what you said there about the Bramley Moore there. I think it's a really interesting take. And where it just immediately made me think was going to that 10,000 first test. We walked in and pretty much nobody watched that game on the pitch. Those poor lads who come on, and many of them, it'll be the biggest game of their lives, going and playing the first match at a brand new stadium. No one was particularly interested in that. It's, look at these shiny new things all around us. Let's go and try this. Let's go and try that. I want to take a photo here. I feel as if we'll get an initial feeling like that at Bramley Moore. Look at I'll say traditional. It seems to me, when you think of teams that have gone to new stadiums, it's taken them a while, and the results have proven that. The one that comes to mind first of all was Arsenal. Arsenal took quite some time before they actually won a game at the Emirates, I think. You look at the similarities between Highbury and Goodison. I think it's something that just can't fall us by the wayside here when you're going into this match. I wouldn't go as far as saying us as fans, because it's a brand new experience for all of us, isn't it? I don't think you can label fans as the reason why there's not an atmosphere there yet, because it will take everybody time to get their feet in there. Player-wise, though, where I probably disagree a little bit in what you said, or forgive me if this isn't what you were indicating, is there should be no excuse amongst the level of performances at Bramley Moore, given that this should be a big moment for them as players. And look, I don't want to get too sort of cushy about this, because people are saying, "Oh, do you know what? It'll be easier to sign players because for going to a brand new stadium. That's something that you can draw a player in. I don't buy that. I don't think that's a case for any player that you want to go and try and sign unless they're an Everton fan, which is not going to be the case. But what I do think is that Moyes, the idea of Moyes taking us to the brand new stadium, I think this is where he'll come into his own, given that it's a fresh start for everybody that goes there. And given what you said there, would you take a sort of mundane, boring, mid-table season? Oh, absolutely. I would pay for. Pay for that. I've just paid a lot of quid to get me teeth done. I probably would pay for Everton to have a boring season. They're not threatened with relegation whatsoever. And you've got your big games like the first derby there, the first game against United, all the big teams that come to Bramley-Moore. But I do think you're right. I think the opposition will relish coming there because it's a brand new place. I think that the enthusiasm that'll be there from everybody, ours, theirs, fans from everywhere. We were like that when we went to Tottenham, Les, weren't we?
Yeah.
Do you know, we went there, Everton drew 2-2. We went there on a gorgeous day, and we're looking around more than we're actually watching on the. I know it was a bit of a dead rubber, wasn't it, at the end of the season? Yeah. But we were looking around like, wow, can you imagine what Bramley-Moore is going to be like? And we've reached that position now. But I do think that they can take they can take a lot from what has happened at other clubs who've moved on to new stadiums, and that being a case there at Spurs. And I know we've taken a lot of advice from Spurs for Bramley-Moore. You look at that. I mean, when I look over at that away end, when I was sat at the south stand, I was thinking where their away fans are. It was almost felt like a little bit identical to what we when you go to Spurs, that corner over there. But I mean, it's incredibly exciting that we're able to start looking at it, looking forward to it, and finding a way. I think it's something. It's another facet of what you've got to do over the summer is get used to those lads having to play there on week in, week out at Bramley-Moore at a new stadium. Because look, they need to hit the ground running. Otherwise, you're talking about the same sort of season that we've had for the last 5 years.
Yeah, it took Arsenal 3 games. So they drew with Villa on the first game, drew with Borough on the second game, and then he beat Sheffield United 3-0 in the third game. I mean, Rodger,
no one wants to draw against Borough.
No. So, Rodger, we could be potentially in for a boring mid-table rebuilding season. But there are different ways of having a boring mid-table season, aren't there? So if you look at like comparisons now to Sean Dyche drew 3 of his last 6. Moyes has now drawn 3 of the last 6 as well. But the two teams are just chalk and cheese, aren't they? There's 2 ways of going about it. And this iteration of Everton is much better than the previous one.
Yeah. So I don't think league position, boring in terms of league position, but boring without the relegation jeopardy is kind of what I'm meaning in terms of an average league finish. But there are different ways of getting there. You're spot on. And now that we're going to have 52,888 people there, with a portion of walk-ups and people are paying a little bit more for their season tickets, there's, I think, an increased pressure on the team to play entertaining football because, wouldn't you know it, Everton's the team that plays beautiful football, as the song goes. And I think that's going to be the challenge, right? Now, we can have the spirit and we can have the never say die attitude and the late equalisers or the late winners. But we want to see some good football because we haven't seen some for so long, so long. And Ndai is an exciting player, Alcaraz an exciting player, a few more creative players, a goal scorer, a bit of pace down one or both wings, and we'll be an attractive team to watch. And the difference between getting a crowd of 46,000 or 49,000, 52,000 will be those margins of are we going to play good, entertaining football? And I think that's the challenge because if we're playing good, entertaining football and finishing 12th, no one will care. But if we're grinding out 0-0 draws and we're horrible to watch and we're reliant on Pickford at the back and keep it tight, then that's a very different experience. And let's hope that entertainment and the quality, because the Americans are in and it's all about entertainment and the match day experience and hanging around and all of that corporate nonsense. But it's true. And the more exciting the players are, the more exciting their style of play is, the earlier perhaps people will want to get into the stadium and see them warming up and practicing their tricks and all of that stuff. So I think that's really another challenge. It's not just let's just get to Bramley Moor and the world is great again. You know, this is the launch pad, and it's from there that we have to build a future that will see us being a little more competitive than we've been for a very long time.
Yeah, it is going to be a big rebuilding job. Obviously, like we touched upon before, there's a lot of players who are out of contract. We touched upon that last week. We went through them. But Dave, where do you stand on entertaining football or winning football? I know they're not mutually exclusive, but I'm often of the opinion that I don't actually care what the 90 minutes has been like if we win. If we draw or lose, then I do. Where do you stand on that? Do you reckon we can get the balance right? Or
I think the encouragement's there from what we've seen from Moyes since he came back. I think watching Everton's a much brighter proposition than what we've seen beforehand, whether you're Evertonian or not. I feel as if the way in which he sort of set this team up, Everton are going to create chances. Should do, apart from the exception of West Ham, not creating too many chances. But I feel as if that you've got the perfect platform there with a manager and a squad now, like I've referred to there, about the attacking players that we're able to mix about. That it should be able to fall in line. But I don't care how we play to get 3 points. I really don't care. Then that's when it becomes the fine line, isn't it? Because if you don't win and you've played poorly, or you're not entertaining to watch, then your head will be on the block quite early as a manager. I think you see that whichever club you see, and that's why it becomes a fine line. If we play good football and we're still not picking up results, you'll last a bit longer than if you play. Because obviously, if you're playing poor football and you're losing games, it's gotta go. You've got to go. You've got to go. Much the same way we've seen from Dyche, much the same way we've seen from Lampard to an extent. People won't have any of it. So I think in regards to that, we've got a manager there who can balance it that way, and it's really interesting we're able to say that now after what's he had a dozen games since he's been back. Yeah, I feel that now with him. I did not expect him to have us as such a good prospect to go and watch. Even and honestly, I've got friends in different clubs up and down the country who I speak to work-wise. Really good to watch Everton. It's really, I'm going to watch this Everton game if they're on the weekend. The amount of times we'd look and think, we've got these who are just going to be sitting there with 5% possession all game and trying to get a 0-0 draw. Everton are very different in a really short amount of time there. So I think we're headed in the right direction with those things all in mind. And I feel as if that's why there's enough there to get excited about with both results and playing well to get the results. But look, we play like old Moyes when, remember the 6 games on the spin, we won 1-0 and had about 2 shots every single game. Don't give me that. I just don't care, to be honest with you. Even though if they score a last minute equaliser at Bramley Moor, it's going to be, we've played shite. That's why, we should be in 3 or 4-0 up there because we've been sitting on the edge of our own 18-yard box. There'll still be plenty of that if Everton don't play attractive football.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There is a definite better way to draw a game, isn't there? Like if you get the late equaliser, it's brilliant. Those West Ham fans going home at the weekend would have felt like a defeat. It would have been awful for them. But Rog, what do you reckon? What do you reckon this squad needs next season? Then we've got a decent attacking setup there. I think with the players to come back, you've got a lot of options. Centre forward position probably. And I was just looking at the weekend. Do you think it's time maybe for Irabunum to get a start ahead of Garner? Maybe James Garner. I think he's dropped off the last couple of weeks, and Irabunum's come on and shown a lot of promise.
I think I don't see any reason why not. We've got Derby's next, though, isn't it?
True, I forgot about that.
Irabunum does deserve a go, whether with Garner or with Drissa. I think Moyes can use these, remaining 8-9 games to maybe try some things like that.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing at stake. I'd slightly take issue with you that we're okay at the top of the pitch, because I don't know where the goals are coming from still. And if you look at the attackers that I would keep, if we put Alcaraz in that group, I'd like to keep him, and I'd like to keep and Dijk, obviously. Calvert-Lewin will be off.
Yeah.
Beto's a lovely guy, and he's scored a few goals, but he's so limited, and he's not a Premier League starting centre forward. Let's get real. Chermiti is worth persevering with. I don't think he's out of contract either. Young, talented, probably make an impact off the bench to begin with, and then might earn a starting place. So we desperately need. I think we need 2 strikers, and we need pace. We haven't got pace down the flanks. I don't know what the situation is with Dwight McNeil. I don't think anybody really does. I wouldn't continue with Jack Harrison. So I think we need a couple of wide players and 2 attackers, 2 goal scorers, if you will. And then, yeah, at the back, well, we've got to find back 4, really. You know, you would say perhaps we need a slight upgrade at left back, and perhaps we need a specialist right back. If we assume that, sadly, Branthwaite will go, do we have to assume that? Well, will we get top dollar for him? We'd have to. Obviously, O'Brien's been a huge success, and Tarkowski has, you know, returned to a slightly more predictable version of himself. Although there were a couple of lunges and a couple of attempts at bookings, on Saturday. Maybe he's going
can't help himself, can he?
I want to be the last person sent off at Goodison Park. That's what I want to be. So, yeah. And are we going to keep Pickford? You'd like to think we'd keep Pickford. Yeah, top of the pitch still worries me. So I want a centre forward, and I want another goal scorer, and I want some pace, and I want someone who really is a number 10. Doucouré is not a number 10. I know he's played there a lot, and I know he's scored some goals, but he isn't. He isn't what you're looking for in a number 10. If you look around the league and other players in that position, or teams that play with more of a sort of fluid. You know, that Bournemouth front 3, even the Redshite front 3, you know, they all mix and match. So I'd like to think that Moyes has got some people lined up, and that, you know, we'll be able to act reasonably quickly. Just going back to this entertaining football and winning, if we are still a bottom half team, then that means we're underdogs. We're not favourites to win, you know, half of our games at home, you might think. Not just the top 6, but those outside of it, maybe Newcastle and others. So it is about a style of football, because you're going to have to win the games that you can win really comfortably and play well and entertain. You're going to have to dig in against City and Chelsea and Liverpool. Of course you are. And you're going to have to hit them on the counter, and you're not going to be able to dominate possession. But every team needs flexibility, and I think that's what Moyes has brought to us. We've got flexible styles of play. And that's where some of the other teams this season have come unstuck. Arsenal, Manchester City, got one way of playing. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Liverpool yesterday were the same. You know, that Newcastle bullied them, and Liverpool didn't seem to change anything apart from throwing every attacker they'd ever signed on the pitch at the same time and leaving Salah marooned on the right wing. I mean, it was quite extraordinary. So I think Moyes, with his experience and with his sort of tactical nous, will have different ways of playing within a game and different styles of play. And I think he wants players not just who are Philip Neville's, can play in 27 different positions, but people who can play in a different way. Character is going to be really important as well. Yeah. We want young, ambitious, hungry players, not players who are coming to the end of their careers, you know, for a last payday, like some of those midfielders we signed from Manchester United. No names, of course. So yeah, you've got to be optimistic, and I'm pleased that, you know, we're closing off the season with a nice unbeaten run, which, you know, I did say we wouldn't lose another game this season. So
you did.
I guess we just got to get a draw at Anfield or nick a late winner, and, you know.
Yeah, it does. It's a good point, that, Rodger, about you know, Arsenal and Man City, and that they seem to have managers who are so dogmatic in what they do that they haven't got another way of playing. I think the good thing, like you say, about Moyes is he is flexible. He can, you know, sort of work to the player's strengths to make the team better than the sum of its parts sometimes. But I think one thing we've lacked over the last few years is an identity as well.
Totally.
The players that have come in, they've been so mismatched. Just kind of, oh, well, we can get them, so we'll get them in. There's been no identity with the club, and I think, just to come back to you on that, I think that the style of play does kind of dictate the identity, doesn't it? But you've got to be flexible and get the right players in.
It's players being on the same page, isn't it? And there seems to be, partnerships. That's how some of the great teams work. Those partnerships. Okay, we have to go back to the '80s and talk about, Stephen and Stevens and Van den Houw and Sheedy and Gray and Sharp, and these partnerships that we had, and so those successful teams, they have great partnerships, teamwork around the pitch. And if the players are coming in and have all been sort of recruited with the same sort of tactical approach, and they've bought into that tactical approach, then they're of the same mindset. And you don't need selfish players. You don't need people who are going to shoot when there's a better player. That Newcastle team yesterday, they were all playing for each other. They were all on the same page. And Howe's brought them together from a range of different backgrounds and different stages in their career. Even Callum Wilson comes on for the last 10 minutes and plenty of shithousery in the corner flag. That's what you aspire to. Ultimately, that was the fruition of that project, if you will. They've all come together and they all knew their roles, and they were prepared to play different roles at different times of the game. And that's where the identity comes from, and the fans and the players all together. Clearly, an exceptional case in terms of the Barcodes yesterday, but that really was, the personification of a team, a manager, a group of players, fans all together, and getting success.
I think what that shows as well, Dave, is that it takes time to get.
Of course, it does.
He's been at Newcastle.
Nottingham Forest have got it. Nottingham Forest have got it this season. Yeah. I'll tell you that. Those wingers, Hudson-Odoi, Alanga, Chris Wood, Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson, that back four, that goalkeeper, they're almost the team of the season. They are a real team, a real unit, and really difficult to beat. And I hope they get Champions League, whilst they're a bunch of Tory arses. I do hope they get it, because they deserve it. And that manager deserves it, because he's a good manager too.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It will take time from what we've got and from what we could be left with in the summer.
Yeah. Our starting point is much lower.
Yeah. This is going to be a longer project, and I think if you look at Moyes and his time at West Ham before he went on to win the Europa Conference, he had a 16th place finish, 13th place finish. Now, I don't think they were ever in any relegation trouble during a second spell, but they were down there, and I think Dave, that's where we need to sort of be patient now, isn't it? We're not going to have it all as soon as we move in the new ground. It will take time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people need to keep in mind, keep it quite central to the thoughts about what goes on this summer, given what happened under Managerial. It's interesting. I've said this or mentioned it a few times on various shows that we've done since Managerial left, which is late last year, wasn't it? When you think about it. It's crazy. It feels like a long time ago. Well, it was a long time ago before we seen him. And the simplicity, I said, from the new owners is to just don't do what he did. And I think just that as the pure basis of what you're going to do to try and make Everton a more successful football club is to do that. And that goes along with, if you need to look a little bit more of a finer detail of how Everton went about recruitment. And that's going to be at the centre of everything we go and do this summer, and how Everton get into a side that's exactly what you've said there. I feel like that structure needs to be there already, and that's why, much to the controversy, I think me and Rodger, I certainly was anyway, throwing a few different lines towards me when we said, I'm delighted that Thirlwell was being pushed away. Where I'm encouraged by that more so was the fact that it happened quite quickly. The new owners have come in and made that decision. They've got a game plan. They know, well, we presume that they know how Everton need to change in the structure of this side, in which a committee, whatever you want to call it, about how we're going to sort out recruitment, how we're going to sort out the whole structure of the club there. And that's what makes me a little bit more excited than Moyes just being back himself, really, because I think one of the things that sticks in my mind with David Moyes is he was never given any money. He was realistically never given any money. And there were 2 points that stick in my mind over Everton, and they were sort of, one way or the other, a fork in the road, was when we finished fourth and we did not add. I think we got Yobo permanently or something like that it was. And we didn't capitalise on finishing fourth and fell by the wayside. Just become always known as the also-ran side when we get into Europe, but a Champions League. Look what the Champions League mean these days. Champions Leagues mean you're not. Look at Newcastle. I know they've got ridiculous amounts of money now, but Newcastle finishing the top 4. And what will happen, I would presume, Rodger, with what you said there, that excellent point about Forest, you get into a position there where it becomes regular and you're up there consistently, and it takes a ridiculously poor season for that not to happen. Manchester City, obviously a complete different basket case, but they've had a woeful season, yet they might well still go and qualify for the Champions League. They have to put a lot of work in, but I could still expect them ahead of Chelsea. And I feel when you've got the second point, by the way, I was going to make there with where we missed the boat was when we sacked Martinez. Martinez never got any relevant amount of money as well, and our recruitment under Martinez was pretty decent in regards to Lukaku and McCarthy and Barry and all that sort of thing. He didn't have any money really, and Managerial came along, didn't he, at the same time that he was around when he was sacked. Who knows?
Sacked him after 2 semi-finals.
Yeah. And who would have? You don't know what would have happened if he was given a few quid to spend there. But when we've spent in front of Koeman,
we'd have been relegated to them. I won't put that. But anyway,
I mean, we could spend all day arguing about that, and Marco Silva as well. Who, like, I'll die on the hill saying I think Marco Silva is a really good manager, and he's sort of proven that right. What's going on there at Fulham?
Just quickly on that, Dave. Sorry, I think Marco Silva was definitely wrong place, wrong time, and we touched upon this last night in messages, Rog. I think Eddie Howe going to Everton would have been a disaster as well when he went to Newcastle.
Yeah, seen that.
I think he's got the structure in place there that he's become a better manager now than when he was at Bournemouth. I think if he'd have gone to Everton at that time, the structure wouldn't have been in place, and it fell flat on its arse. I think
maybe. I'm a big fan of Eddie Howe. I mean, if you look at his career, his body of work, taking Bournemouth from the edge of the precipice out of the Football League into the Premier League and staying there. Apart from his stupid dalliance at Burnley, I think his body of work's pretty impressive. And his win percentage at Newcastle
50%, which is amazing.
Yeah, and that when they came out of the Championship, they were destroying teams. They were winning 5 and 6 goals away from home. They're entertaining to watch. And I know what you're saying, and a lot of people. I wanted Eddie Howe to get the gig, not because he was a boyhood Evertonian. I just think he's a really good coach. As long as he didn't bring Jason Tindall with him, because we don't have enough sunbeds for him. But I think what he's done at Newcastle, is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, he's had a bit of money, but he's not had that much money because they were under, they've been under restrictions. He's recruited well. He's picked some really good players. Dan Burn, he might have paid over the odds, but he's a player and a half. I like Harvey Barnes. Thankfully, he did give us 50 million for our Anthony. And I think it's so difficult with Everton because of the fans. Let's just, it's the elephant in the room is the fans, right? Because the fans get impatient, and we wouldn't have, we'd have got on his back very quickly. And would we have had the patience to see him develop something positive? Possibly not. Would he have been able to cope with that, big city dual club rivalry, which we've talked about? Nice little link there to the Gavin podcast part 2 we're doing tomorrow, with this big city rivalry that one of the reasons my old man said Bobby Robson would never come to Everton was that he couldn't cope with a 2-club city. And don't say he did it at Barcelona, because that's not a 2-club city, because Espanyol are just there to, make up the numbers. Shame about Eddie. I think he's a fantastic coach, and I hope he stays there and succeeds with them even further. I hope he doesn't get distracted by the England job. He's a good coach. He's done good things. He's managed a team from the 4th tier to the top. That's pretty spectacular.
That is, to be fair.
Can I just say there on Eddie Howe? I think it's really interesting that he never ever seemed far away from getting sacked, because when Newcastle became the entity that they are financially, when they had the takeover happened and Ashley left and all that crap, he came in. He wasn't brought in to get Newcastle into the position they're in now. He was somewhat of a stepping stone. I feel as if that was what Newcastle intended him to be. Come in,
but they were like second bottom when he came in.
Exactly,
really threatened with relegation.
That's exactly why. When that happened and he came in, there was no feeling, I don't think, from their owners to think, you know what, he's going to be here for several years, become a really successful. Newcastle are going to be a really good side and fight for Champions League places in Europe. Yes, there's financial capacity there when they're allowed to go and spend it. And we know all this ourselves more than anybody else, don't we, about the financial issues of recruitment. But with Howe himself, he's fought superbly to get to that stature that he is now at that football club. And I think it's probably gone by the wayside a little bit, because when you get somebody in for a particular way, and maybe referring to Bournemouth anyway, with the Areola who's there now, Bournemouth wouldn't have expected to be where they are. Bournemouth wouldn't have expected that they've gone and got a unknown manager who's took the league by storm, and as Bournemouth as a side that could be in the Champions League. It's probably not going to happen now, but they're looking like they're going to be in European football, or perhaps in European football. Some things happen by, it's just luck, isn't it? And I don't think anybody who went out there and thought, you know what, we'll recruit him, and that's a master stroke, we've gone and got him. I wouldn't have thought that was, wow, this is exactly what I expected from this manager. It was to keep Bournemouth in the Premier League, let's face it. And then when Eddie Howe goes in there at Newcastle, that was the remit that he had, was to effectively what we're saying now. You want Newcastle as a bog standard, boring mid-table side, mid-table club, given what happened with them with relegations and things, not too long ago. He's come in and done that. Where he's excelled is proving himself to be a top manager. And I think that the narrative with him is really interesting, because it felt to me earlier on this season, because they had a poor run of form earlier on this season, and they were mid-table. They were like 8th, 9th, 10th. And people are still thinking, oh, he's taken us as far as we can go and all that sort of thing. And that is because of his history. That is because of where he's come from. What you've mentioned there, Rodger, he's done an incredible job there at Bournemouth, and what he got them to become and where they are now. But that is still not the job that equates to a manager you want at a club that's going to have them competing for the Champions League position. And that is why he deserves even more credit than what he's done throughout his career. He still looks about 12. He still looks like he's when he smiles, he looks like whether he's, I don't know whether he's smiling or absolutely fuming. I think I've seen that something written about that, saying if you ever look at Eddie Howe's face and he smiles, you don't know whether he's smiling or you don't know whether he's fuming. He's just got a face that can go either way. But I think he's very well spoken as well. The guy next to him there, the sunbed lover, him next to him, he's actually a really nice guy, by the way. I've been speaking to him a few times when he was at Bournemouth. He took over at Bournemouth, didn't he? When Eddie Howe left.
Just briefly, yeah.
Yeah, they've just got a setup that works. They've got a setup that works, despite the fact that they've got a massive kitty. Let's not take away from that. But I think it's too simplistic to say, well, they should be doing this, they should be doing that, because they have that in the background. He's got players like Dan Burn. Dan Burn wasn't, a well-renowned defender. Let's face it, I know they paid big money for him in the end, but when he was at Brighton, he was a decent centre-back / full-back. Which I think, it's a common trend now, isn't it? Full-backs who are big fellas. Yeah, exactly. So, the players he went and got there, like Wilson, you're not saying he's a top Premier League striker. They went and got him. Joel, the one thing I wanted to make about him, just to gone on a bit of a tangent here with Newcastle, haven't we? But Joel Linton there, they signed him as a striker.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely woeful as a striker. He's reinvented himself, and that's clearly because of who he's got working in and around him. Eddie Howe will be one of those people who are at the top of that list in terms of getting him to turn into a top-class midfield player. You've seen him yesterday.
We're not going to do that with Beto. Beto is not going to turn into a midfield.
That's very true. But you've got, that is a rarity, isn't it? Getting players who just always they'll end up in a position that they're far better at when they've spent the rest of their career in a completely different role. But he's a powerhouse of a midfield player. He was bullying players in that League Cup final. And that's not by coincidence when you've got somebody like an Eddie Howe there who is he loves his craft. He seems to be really enthused about what he does. And you hear him speak. He said, I think they asked him a question at the end of that game and said, "Oh, you got the international break now. Are you going to go and celebrate?" He said, "No, I'll be back first thing in work tomorrow. Just reading his books or whatever it is he goes and does. He's going to get straight back into work the next day." I think him, Moyes, the cut from that sort of cloth where they love the gig that much and they're that passionate about it. I bet you David Moyes isn't gone on. You're going playing a few rounds of golf or whatever, or maybe do the odd day. But David Moyes will still be looking at what Everton need to do, particularly with it being the derby when we come back.
Just to finish, then, do you think the League Cup result yesterday, and the fact that there's a really good chance that not one of the big six, for want of a better phrase, are going to win the FA Cup? It seems a lot more open this season. Teams outside the usual established clubs who win trophies are going to win a trophy. Does that put more pressure on the club for next season at Everton? Does it put more expectations from the fans? It's not. I know it'll be a rebuilding job at City, a rebuilding job at Arsenal. They'll come back better next season than they've been this season, I would imagine. Liverpool will probably just carry on as they are. Do you think there's going to be more pressure from the fans to think things are up for grabs a bit more now?
I think there should be. I think there should be. The Geordies have waited 70 years and they were a laughing stock, for having to wait so long. The first cup never counted. They've had, was that 5 losing cup finals they've been in before yesterday, 4 or 5. So they've done it. So that's the monkey off their back. Spurs haven't won, but they have won a trophy before. Since we have, they won that League Cup with the mystery Swiss manager, wasn't it? Who won that for them? Who turned up with the tube ticket? Yeah, I think
Ramos.
So. I think it was. Oh no, Juan de Ramos, was it?
Juan de Ramos, yeah.
Spurs. It's Spurs. They'll always be Spurs. So there should be, and if a Brighton or a Fulham win Fulham's still in the FA Cup, are they?
Yeah, got Palace.
Yeah, or Palace, Fulham,
Villa.
Palace, Brighton, Bournemouth, Villa. Well, Villa in Champions League, for God's sake. Look at them. So, yes, and it's great that this established order, which hasn't been that established, City have been around for 10 years. That's about it. The final point on Newcastle, by the way, I mean, they did beat Arsenal home and away in the semi-final, who are second in the league, and then they beat the runaway league leaders in the final. So, normally your League Cup final is, we beat Birmingham City or whoever, I think that the fact that other trophies are there, and there are a few more, there are 3 European competitions now. Get into the European Conference League, bloody win it, get into the Europa League, win the Europa. I mean, Spurs and Man United, who have had the most ridiculously poor seasons, underachievers extraordinaire, level or certainly down the bottom half of the table with us. Either of those two could be in the Champions League next year if they win the Europa League. I don't think they will for a moment because the teams left in the competition should beat them. But United are almost, you wouldn't put it past them, would you, with, Superman Fernandes to just score all their goals. So when you're in Europe and when you're in those competitions, you improve. You get into the latter stages of competitions and it's all there. Sometimes things just open up for you.
Yeah,
when they do for us. Say there, just on what you've said there, Rodger, well, both of you really, the thing that, none of us have discussed there when you talk about cup ties, and I've written down here, Moyes, cup, shite. David Moyes, with the exception of the semi in
2009,
2009, that final, he used to, what hair I had at the time, he used to make me pull it out when we go into League Cup games, and he put in some ridiculous sides with a ridiculously shit goalkeeper and looked like he didn't care about it one bit. And there was one season when we did, it was when Chelsea did us in that semi-final, which we should have gone through on. It was when Yakubu, I still maintain that was the hardest shot I've ever seen in my life when he scored at Stamford Bridge. He absolutely ripped it. That was a great chance to go and do that then. There's been opportunities for Moyes to go all in at those competitions, and it does get by me when he's not doing that. And Everton should be a side that goes and does it, like you've mentioned there, Rodger. I think why can't Everton put everything in one basket to go and win, or to go? I'm not going to say a cup run. I can't stand when people say cup runs. I don't want a cup run. I want a cup win. Nobody talks to me about cup runs. I want Everton to do well in a cup. I want Everton to go and win. Otherwise, it's pointless being in it. and that's what has been poor from him when he was the last Everton manager. Obviously, you'd think that's changed because he's gone and won one with West Ham there. I didn't watch it too fine to see what sort of he did squad-wise with that. But let's face it, if Everton are a mid-table side, or let's say we're in the position we are this season, maybe a little bit higher up the table, and you've got a League Cup, you've got an FA Cup, and you've got the ability to be able to go and battle for, what, 8th place, is it? 7th place? It's at least 7th, isn't it? With the confidence
talking about
there.
11th this season.
In those, what? I know,
yeah, 12th
this season.
in those cup competitions there, it'll infuriate me if he isn't putting out the best 11 Everton have got to go and win that. The next stage, the next game, put your priority on that, particularly if we're a safe mid-table side. That's what I want from David Moyes, and that's what he needs to prove. Personally, as a fan, I'd like to see him prove that.
Yeah, I'm always of the opinion anyway that you should play your best team in the cup because, winning just breeds confidence, doesn't it? If you've got, don't see the cup as a distraction, see the cup as another chance to win another game, really. And I think that's how we should look at it. I think next season as well, there will be more pressure from the owners because they'll want, relative success. So I think as we mentioned, and just to go back into where we're doing part 2 with Gav this week, but I think we mentioned last time we don't really want our Everton back, do we? We want a different Everton. We want
a new one.
A new Everton that, looks at actually winning things, which would be nice for once. But we'll leave it there, gents. Cheers for that. Thanks Rodger. Thanks, Dave. Interesting. It's going to be really interesting going into the next season. See what the new ground brings, see what the new squad brings in the summer. But we've got 4 more games at Goodison to get through yet. And just see out the rest of this campaign, really. So as usual, we'll have all the usual stuff coming up this week. We'll have subs weekly, the weekly, got mailbag on Friday. We'll have a match. We won't have a match preview because we haven't got a match at the weekend. But yeah, as I said, me and Rodger speaking to Gav, so we'll have part 2 of that. So look out for that. Thanks to everyone who listened and watched on YouTube. That's been it for this week's Blue Monday. Up the Toffees.